Florida State has the opportunity to make some major waves in recruiting over the next few weeks. With a couple of 5 stars already committed to the Noles, there's still some big fish left that the staff is working hard to land. Perhaps most notably, 5-star defensive back Charles Lester is set to announce his commitment tonight at 8:30 p.m. Now, there's a good bit to unpack here in this recruitment, as you already know what happened last time FSU was heavily involved with a 5-star DB. A few months back, Lester named the top 4 schools, including Florida State, Georgia, Alabama, and of course Colorado. The Noles have long felt and been perceived as the favorite, especially when Charles Lester canceled his visit to UGA, set his commitment date all after visiting Florida State back in late June. He's been on record multiple times saying Florida State is his leader and even said that he has almost committed to the staff a few times. Now, this all bodes extremely well for FSU. However, some more drama has been stirred up lately as rumors of a surprise visit began to surface. This visit ended up being a trip to Colorado, which really doesn't look like a good sign, as this is bringing back all the PTSD from the Travis Hunter incident. However, this isn't a typical unofficial visit. He's not visiting by himself. He's actually going with several other teammates from the Venice Beach area. The reasoning of this visit is relatively unknown, and of course some of the pessimists are saying he's heading up there to commit to Deion Sanders in person and show his commitment video. Personally, I feel like this is all a big smokescreen. Lester's a talented kid and supposedly has a pretty big commitment ceremony planned for this Friday. Knowing Noles fans, this whole deal with Colorado has everybody incredibly worked up. But in my opinion, this is all just drumming up excitement and attention for his commitment, which I still do expect to be to FSU. I'm by no means super connected to his recruitment or even recruiting in general, but you can just see that none of the expert predictions have changed. All the recruiting analysts from 247 and On3 still remain confident despite this visit. Thursday afternoon, Steve Wiltfong said he's keeping his crystal ball with the Noles and is still confident in his pick. So it sounds like there's more info to come out about this whole visit situation, but we'll just have to see what that ends up being about. But I do still remain confident in FSU here. Next up, we got consensus 5-star, the number 1 safety in the country, and KJ Bolden making his decision just 1 week after Charles Lester. KJ has repeatedly said FSU is his dream school, but I'm not too sure how to feel about that statement anymore, as it's not seemed to do too well for FSU in the past. It was long thought that FSU was running maybe 3rd at best in this recruitment behind Georgia and Ohio State. KJ goes to high school at Beaufort, Georgia, so when you factor that UGA is the in-state school, and they've also been back-to-back national champions, you tend to lean towards the Dogs, especially when you look at what they've done as far as putting defense into the league. Then you have Ohio State, where he has family. I believe it's his cousin that's on staff there. They've also been a successful team in recent years and recruiting right up there with Georgia and Alabama. That being said, it seems some things have changed in the last several weeks. KJ has had an official visit planned to FSU for some time in the season. It hasn't stopped him from unofficially visiting Florida State a few times in the last few months. His last visit was in late June, where he unofficially visited for multiple days. The visit went really well, according to KJ and those close to Florida State. KJ reportedly spent quite a bit of the quality time with Coach Norvell and new DB's coach, Pat Surtain. Since this visit, he's been very active on social media. If you look at his Twitter likes and follows, there's a lot of FSU-related stuff on there. He's also said that he thought he had a school picked out, but then a few weeks ago spoke with another coach, and it completely changed his mindset and decision. Now, this is pure speculation, but it definitely sounds like he could be referencing that last visit to FSU, and the timeline certainly adds up. Also, keep in mind that he's taking his official visit to every other school except FSU. He saved that one from potentially the Miami game in season, and that would be huge if he's already committed at the time of the visit. You've seen a lot of posts from On3, and the 247 message boards are absolute mess right now, but it definitely seems like the KJ Bolden and FSU smoke is very real, and that's a great sign this close to his announcement. I also have to add in that DB's coach Pat Surtain was just hired in January to replace Marcus Woodson. If he's able to land a 5-star DB in Charles Lester and then pull the number 1 safety in the country away from UGA all in his first cycle, the man is already under his paycheck. Now, maybe the least likely player on this list, but absolutely worth mentioning, 5-star wide receiver Jeremiah Smith, who is currently committed to Ohio State, has confirmed that he will be visiting Tallahassee this weekend for the Seminole Showcase event. This isn't his first multi-day visit to FSU either. Despite being committed to Ohio State, he's still shown quite a bit of love and interest in FSU. He's even told media outlets how Mike Norvell has been recruiting him since the very beginning, and apparently Mike Norvell even told Smith years ago that he could be the number 1 player in his position. Now here he is, sitting as the number 1 wide receiver and number 2 player overall in the 2024 recruiting class. So not only is this another good eval from Coach Norvell, but it also shows the relationship that has existed over the course of several years with Jeremiah Smith. It also absolutely doesn't hurt to look at the 2022 season for FSU and see the success of wide receiver Johnny Wilson, who had almost 1,000 yards receiving despite having some drops and an elite rushing attack. If Smith were to ultimately end up joining this class, he would also be coming in with quarterback commit Luke Kromenhoek, who has risen to the number 3 quarterback, top 50 player in the nation. And that certainly adds to the appeal as well. Now, all this is obviously a bit of a long shot because despite the recent success of FSU, no one has developed receivers the way Brian Hartline and Ohio State has. You got Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Thomas, and lots more that have gone on and been successful in the NFL. Now, there is some speculation that Brian Hartline is connected to a few open head coaching jobs, most recently the Northwestern job after they fired their head coach. We can't tell for sure, but I think it's safe to say that Brian Hartline won't be at Ohio State for Smith's whole college career. Maybe that's got him considering other options a little bit. Who knows? Landing Smith would also lessen the pain of missing out on JoJo Trader, 5-star wide receiver committed to Miami recently, and losing former wide receiver commit TJ Abrams, who flipped to the Gators last week. The bottom line is he's already committed to Ohio State, and it'll be a major battle for FSU to flip him, but there's reason for some cautious optimism here. Bringing in these kinds of players would be absolutely incredible and bring a lot of excitement for FSU fans for years to come. And it's also just nice to be back in the conversation for these types of players. As we all know, these last few years leading up to 2022 at least have been rough on the field and certainly rough for recruiting. So you got to admire the turnaround and love being back in the national spotlight and get back to being involved with lots of high caliber high school talent. So how do you think it plays out? Does FSU go 2 for 2 on the defensive side of the ball and then work on a late flip from Jeremiah Smith? Or does Deion Sanders have you worried? Let me know in the comments and let's talk Noles.